you can see the red light lit and you can hear your voice, which is uncomfortable, and I hate hearing it, but and that is important because if you can't hear yourself, that means people at home can't hear you.
Got it.
And the recording won't get a good recording of what's going on. So people want to watch it again. So just pull it close and make sure the button's on. And we do have people downstairs who are filming that'll pay attention to that, and they can remotely turn lights on, but it's helpful for them when we remember to speak closely to the mic and remember to turn it on and turn it off when you're done.
Okay. Doesn't look like, is Alex gonna join us by?
She'll join us remotely, yes.
I know I've read this, but I need to go over it.
So back to Washington quite a bit again?
Be what?
Back to Washington?
Every now and then.
Yeah.
You know, last month it was St. Louis and DC.
Okay.
Last month we didn't have a meeting, which helped.
It helps, but also it doesn't help because I get all rearing to go with the things,
right,
and then we
yeah.
cancel it, and I have to get my.
All
Yeah,
right,
okay.
thank you.
All
I
right,
spent
are you
2 hours putting it together, I said, we have to hurry, I still have this.
Yeah.
Meeting will come. There we go. Meeting will come to order, and would everybody please stand for the pledge? And the flag is in back of you, in case you didn't know. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, for liberty and justice for all. Okay. Yeah. All right, roll call. Leslie.
Marie Claire Gorman. Here. John Krischer.
Here.
Susan Murphy.
Here.
Phil Pardue.
Here.
Mary Jo Williams.
Here.
We are all here. Thank you.
All right. Doesn't seem to be any public appearances. Okay. I have 2 announcements. One is I gave out, everybody else knows about it, we have a book sale coming up. It will be our last one. It'll be the 50th, and I gave the 2 new people. It's July 13th, 14th, and 15th at the Youth Center. And the other thing is that we are now selling, besides the farmer's market, which is doing well, we're selling books at the Park Branch, and we're doing really well on that. She just picked up $100 the other day. So very good. So are there any other announcements from anybody? No. Okay.
And then I just have a couple of things. One, I want to formally welcome Marie Claire and Mary Jo, our new board members. We have 5 members now, and it's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to working with the both of you, and I can speak for the whole group to say we're excited to see what you'll bring to the discussions that we have, and we're going to have a really good year this year. Also, in line with the announcements on the Friends, we will be having a proclamation read at the next council meeting honoring them for 50 years of providing support to the library, which has been, so amazing, and they've been so dedicated over the years. I want to thank Letty Bennett, the president of the Carmel Public Library Foundation, for putting that forth to the council. So we'll be there. I'll be there reading the proclamation, and I've let the board president know, and I'm excited to be able to do that for them and to continue working with the Friends as they transition into a new model of service to the library.
Okay. Alex, you're on. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Hello, good morning. Good morning, trustees and new trustees. Welcome. We're excited to have you on board as the foundation executive director. So CPLF has been so proud to partner with the library in support of the library that not only won 1, but 2 prestigious awards this year. Also, both the library and the foundation had some exciting, impactful programs that were well attended, and it was gratifying to see the high usage with the Gathering Place at the Harrison Memorial Library this year, too. Well done, Ashley, and all of the librarians. Kudos to all of you. Excited to report CPLF's budget has been passed, And that will include the library's request of additional annual funding. So we're happy to do that this year, for going forward for next year. As CPLF wraps up this year, we're excited to report that we had over 2,500 attendees to our programs, both in person and online. We filled the Sunset Center Theater with our annual fundraiser, the Educated Edition with author Tara Westover. And we met and exceeded our financial goal with a little over $164,000. So really excited about that too. We raised close to $50,000 for our communications initiative through Monterey County Gives, and the library and the foundation are continuing to work on our branding updates for our identity. Another significant initiative this year is partnering with the library on the master plan, and we look forward to continuing to discuss how we can, with the support of our city and community, achieve our necessary building upgrades. Just rattling off more of the highlights of the year. This year, we honored one of our top donors, Valera Lyles, with a tribute dinner. And a few weeks ago, we hosted our Sterling Circle reception and had about 30 attendees, some members and some potential members. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Sterling Circle, it's an opportunity to include the library through the Library Foundation in your estate planning. And we don't ask for amounts. We just ask that you include it, and your name goes on a plaque, and you get invited to lovely annual receptions as well. Also this year, CPLF continued to boost the library's visibility through print, electronic, and social media, as well as radio, KZU, NPR, and Caramel. And you can find us in the event pages in the current issue of Carmel magazine. We have 5 new board members coming on. They'll be joining us, and 1 returning member this year. And in closing, I'd just like to say CPLF was successful in achieving our goals and continuing to help fund the library this year, in addition to raising visibility with our robust media coverage, engaging world-class speakers for our programs, as well as attracting new supporters. And we're currently working on next year's plans and programs. And thank you to everyone. And if anyone has any questions, I'm available.
Any questions from anybody? Thank you, Alex.
Okay.
Okay, are there any additions or corrections to last month's, 2 months ago's minutes? Okay, do we need a vote, I think? Leslie? Oh, a motion, I'm sorry. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous board meeting?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Marie Claire Gorham. Say abstain. John Krischer.
Yes.
Susan Murphy.
Yes.
Bill Pardue.
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams.
Abstain.
Thank you. We pass.
Okay, librarians report.
So our numbers for April and May are pretty good in terms of circulation, our door counts, and library usage overall. There are some up and downs, and I've been tracking this, which is why I included the overall year-to-date numbers for the end of May at the end of this, the 2 monthly reports. Things that I look at in terms of variables that make those kind of bounces up and down, if you look at CIRC going down in May, are school breaks. Those can affect things. The weather can affect things where people aren't, leaving their house. June gloom has definitely changed the way that people are using the library in terms of it's just gloomy and it's not even that cold, but people don't want to go out. But overall, our numbers in terms of circulation look really good. Our kids numbers for kids circulation are back at pre-pandemic levels. Adult circulation hard copy circulation hasn't quite rebounded that same way, but but that's been offset by electronic checkouts. And keep in mind too, I think about those things in terms of behavior, where audios in particular. A lot of cars are being made nowadays that don't have CD players, and we used to see people checking out, mass stacks of audiobooks, and now they can't listen to them in their cars, physically are unable to do that. But Hoopla and Overdrive can fill those needs, where they're still listening to books while they either walk around town, but are on those types of road trips, that type of activities. So I'm going to continue as we go through to track these numbers, and I think I'd like to keep kind of a report either quarterly or even monthly that's similar to this one that's at the end, so we can kind of keep tracking, because the pandemic was such a disruptive episode in our history and really changed behaviors across the board, and I'd like to keep tracking that. Patron visits are very strong. We've got, we're in the thick of summer reading program right now. We launched our music series in the library and have tried some small programs out to see how booking the gathering place and, reservation types of systems work. So it's been a really productive spring with that, and we've seen pretty good attendance at the programs at the main, and pretty robust attendance if you were at the library yesterday afternoon for Mr. Tom Naughty with the bubbles. It was absolutely packed. We couldn't fit anybody else into the kids department. It was a great time. So that is my report out with regards to statistics and library usage, and I'm happy to answer any types of questions. But I am paying very close attention to these. I'm paying close attention to what our neighboring libraries are experiencing. We can, through the state, have access to all of those statistics, so I've been running some comparisons to see if we stack up, and we're right in line with trends that other libraries are experiencing in terms of hard copy versus e-checkouts, and we're actually, I think, have rebounded a little better than some.
So on the adult circulation, that included both the electronic CDs, books on CD.
Books on CD, everything that we have, yes, all those.
So is there any way to see if it sounded like that the CDs have migrated to ebook checkout, so they would have shifted categories there. Is that what we've seen? So I guess my question is we have more in building programs this year. There's 112 versus 109.
Right.
As we do that, do we start seeing the hard copy checkouts increase? I mean, people come to the library, they start browsing around. Do those increase or not? I'm not sure it changes what we do, but it'd be kind of nice to know.
It doesn't, and it's interesting. So I think that you can attribute that exact thing to what's happening in the children's department. Is for families, having a program happening is a good scheduled time for them to go, and then they check out a bunch of books. Okay. With adults, it's not quite as simple, and I think I've mentioned this at previous board meetings. The trends that we were seeing, and this is libraries all over the country through the statistics they gather through the Institute for Museum and Library Studies, is that libraries were already seeing a downtick in hard copy circulation, even though they were seeing more foot traffic in the buildings for programs and just to be in that space. So that's kind of what we're seeing, and I'm curious, and when we get to the budget discussion, you'll see I didn't really cut the hard copy materials for adults that much because, one, we're gonna have a new head of reference that's gonna be coming in next week, actually. And so I wanna see their eyes on this and new perspectives for how we've been doing what we've been doing in terms of book ordering. But I want to give us a chance after the pandemic to give us some time to see if the hard copy materials are going to rebound.
Right, and this goes back to something we've dealt with over several years on the plan. And how do you keep a physical library relevant as people move to electronic checkout? So now you're competing with Amazon Prime and the Kindle and all these others. How do we keep drawing people in, and how do you measure that in your relevancy as it goes through? So,
Absolutely. I mean, I think about these things all the time. We look at these numbers and they are metrics to see that we are doing things, but it doesn't necessarily show the impact of what we do and how that trickles out to the community. And I think things that I tend to think about are, what's happening with the Carmel Public Library Foundation, for instance, or the Friends of the Library. What are they experiencing? Because what we do has a direct impact on what they're able to do. If people weren't happy with the way the library was operating, they wouldn't be inclined to support the library and maybe to make donations or to show up at the Friends book sale. So I wish there was a really good way to measure this, and it's not a unique problem to our library, but I keep looking for ways, and hopefully we'll find different supportive data to what we have currently with the librarian's report to kind of track where we are and help to predict what the future might be.
And work that into the next strategy for the library.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, your mic's not on, is it on?
it's on.
I have a question. This is kind of mine. We're up 55,000 in electronic checkouts. We're down on that, but our count as a library is really high. And the Friends of the Library are selling a lot of books at their library. So if people aren't checking hardbacks out, they're sure buying off of that. That's people reading the hardbacks, hard copies that at the Friends of the Library are selling, which sort of seems people are still interested in hard copy books, or they wouldn't be selling all these used books at the library.
Yes, and I think that is, I mean, I'm sure we could start tracking, you know, how many books in the Friends, both the Friends and library staff put books out, for instance, on the book shrine. So how many of those hard copy books go out? I don't think that the increase in e-material usage is necessarily a reflection on people not wanting to use hard copy books. It's a matter of convenience. Sometimes for people traveling, I mean, I carry a book with me sometimes, but I always have Libby with me wherever I am, so I have a book always. I mean, that's like a security thing. Can't be somewhere without a book. But I think it's just, and as you say, John, people are supporting the library in a different way, and they're showing that support by purchasing books from the Friends. And it shows, you know, communities' love for books. And you can go all the way back to the beginning of Carmel, where the first thing that they did was form a library and the Forest Theater. I mean, that's where Carmel's heart is, drama and books.
Thank you.
Am I on? Yeah. Are there any other questions? Okay, John, you're on.
Okay, I'll start out with the good news. We're $18,000, almost $19,000 to the good, but as Ash and I were talking yesterday, we think we may be just about even at the end of the year. We'll be really good. Everything's going to even out what we have down. And one of the great things about this year is what we had thought we were going to get on interest, we have really just blown that out of the water. We're getting a lot more. And if the feds increase the prime, we'll even do better next year, hopefully. Other than the one glaring thing that comes out with is the amount of over budget we are with ebooks and Hoopla, which reflects back with the 55,000 checkouts. There's a lot more checkouts than we had thought of. Other than that, I tried to put down just what was under budget, what was over budget for the report. I kind of condense what's going on, and we're really doing good everywhere. There's a few things we're over if you look at like equipment, but then we did a lot of add-ons to that. We had a couple of budget adjustments. We bought a lot of stuff for the children's library. And any other questions you have, but that's about basically where we're set at. Everything else really looks good. And the bottom line is we can finish the year out even, we're going to be happy.
And I want to second what John's saying. We do have some more invoices that are coming in for the audit, in particular oral history interviews. We had a really big interview that has needed some special editing, and actually a couple of interviews at the end of this fiscal year. So bills will be coming in for that. It's always kind of straddle it sometimes in terms of where invoices come in. So when we do end of year report out at the end of July and do the audit report, as John says, we'll hopefully be right up against that line and even.
Any other questions about it? The budget?
And I can tell you, I've been checking it week by week to see where we land and what our year-to-dates are, and just projects that we've been working on. For instance, we did that wholesale, almost wholesale replacement of the nonfiction collection for the kids, and we've been doing a partial project like that for the adult books as well, to do some replacements. So again, all of those bills will be coming in and just kind of right up against the end of the fiscal year.
There's a lot of children's programs we're funding this year we didn't think about in the budget.
Okay, are there any other questions? Are there any questions about, before we approve the check register, did you have anything to add on the check register?
No, on the check register, the one thing I will say to you, you'll see some individuals' names on there now for checks, and that is children's library programs they're having. You'll see the normal ones, like Hoopla and Blackstone, the book people we buy off Amazon, they're there. But there's probably at least 4 or 5, Ashley, of programs that come in that we've paid for of our thing right now. Other than that, everything is just really the same as normal.
Okay, Leslie, do we want to approve the check register then?
Make a
Oh,
motion to approve the
some-
check registers
sorry.
for April and May 2023.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Marie Claire Gorham,
I second it.
John Krisher,
Yes.
Susan Murphy,
yes.
Bill Pardue,
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams. Yes.
Okay, who's going to do the budget? Either John or Ashley?
I'll take the lead, and then John will help support me through this report.
Okay, go ahead.
Since we worked through this together. So the first pass the board had at this was back in April. So some of you have had some time to mull this over. I did include in my staff report a budget review of 2022, 2023, of where we are, what happened over this last fiscal year, which was a lot of growth for us. We added, our children's librarian joined us at this time last year, and a new technical services librarian, and that really changed how we were able to do things. By the end of the summer, we were able to expand our hours and start expanding services back to what they had been pre-pandemic, and add some things in like the RFID project that was funded through the Carmel Public Library Foundation, starting up oral histories again, and really increasing children's programming and getting back to regular story times. Our head of reference position has remained vacant throughout all of this since 2020, and we will now be able to have that position filled. That's going to be really game changer for us in terms of management and oversight of adult collection development, databases, and our e-resources, to have another brain looking at those and managing those as we go along through the fiscal year, this next fiscal year. We also undertook a series of budget adjustments this last year to complete some special projects and use funds that had not been expended. So we purchased the movable shelves in the kids department, which have been an absolute game changer for making space in that department so there's room for everybody. And it's comfortable space so that everybody's not crammed into one little one or grouped around shelves. And we are on track at this point to expend all the funds this fiscal year that were allotted. So on to the proposed budget for 23-24. Because of increased costs that we're seeing across the board, I just got a notification from our book vendor, Baker & Taylor, about, book processing going up a few cents here per book, and that type of thing is real and happening, and we are feeling those effects. The kids library is back to the weekly story times. We also implemented toddler and new mom yoga sessions, and every other Friday night game nights or movie nights. And so we want to keep supporting those as we go forward. In addition, this year we added in a big new program for us, which was to have an author come to visit. We sponsored who went to visit Tularcitos and did presentations to groups of children there, and River School as well. And that was very impactful, and we saw people coming into the library, and the schools really got into it. They made these big posters, welcome Dan Yacarino, who was our author who visited. So we're already starting to brainstorm what we can do next year, and it's a really great way to strengthen our relationships with the schools, to keep that open and those conversations open about how we can support each other in providing children in this community with the best education and enjoyment that they can have. So that's really great, and that's again reflected in the budget so that we can keep those things that we've started going. I also mentioned earlier this meeting programs for adults. This was something we were starting to dip our toes into and plan with the anticipation of the completion of the gathering place, and we were actually able to do it this spring, which is to experiment with music at the library, to have small programs. We did a Medicare workshop and a small presentation on the Bruton sisters from Wendy Good, who's a former reference librarian of ours, who's written a book. And these have been proven pretty popular for time of day, just testing a thing out. And we're even to the point where musicians are excited and want to come play at the library. Our harpist, we have a lovely harpist, Ziv Sarubi, who did some playing for us during the pandemic, during curbside, to kind of relax people and give us some joy. She just impromptu said, "Hey, can I come play one day?" Yes, you can, absolutely. So it just really gives a great community feel at the Harrison Library. And then, of course, we restarted the oral history program really in earnest this January, and we have collected 5 interviews, and I think when I wrote this in May, we've subsequently gotten 3 or 4 more at least. And, oral history interviews are a very complex thing to do. Sometimes people don't want to be on camera. Sometimes they, just want the audio, or they can come to you or they can't. So we've tried testing out things where we do Zoom interviews and really have upped the game with that. And so just capturing as many perspectives on the history of Carmel and the peninsula as we can go along. And that program you'll see in the check register, checks for Ken Holla. He works with us from he's based out of San Juan Bautista, and I actually met him and adopted him from an oral history workshop that I went to, and he's been so key and instrumental in helping to support us and asking questions and equipment, and he's a wonderful person, and I can't sing his praises enough. IT has been slow to get fixed. This is something that I have spoken about at previous meetings in terms of upgrades to public computers and print management systems. I'm in communication with our IT management every single week to find out where we are and what bug is holding us up for. So we're very, very close to finishing the public computer project and the print management systems, including wireless printing capabilities. And so I'm hoping that we can stay on track with those replacements. Again, that's reflected in the budget, as well as outside IT help. Right now, we have our IT manager is one person for a city of, when we're fully staffed, I think we've got 96 employees. So that's, at least 96 devices, whether they're phones or computers or some combination of both. Printing, and throw in the fact that, library is unique with how we have public access to computers. The police department is very, very complicated in terms of what their needs are and security. So I included funds in the budget to that end to fund additional outside IT support if and when needed so that we can get things done. And can provide support to our IT manager as well. And I know the council is in support of that as well, and that was reflected in their adoption of their budget. As mentioned in the last conversation we had, the hard copy circulation of materials has not quite rebounded to pre-pandemic levels, but I want to see again what happens when we have our head of reference in place, but also Saturday hours and these little things that you think might not impact circulation and turnout, but could be key game changers. Maybe it's an increase in adult programs or changing the times of them, and we see that increase. So I want the budget to reflect that. And it does, in terms of proportions, when you look at adult hard copy circulation versus e-copy circulation, the hard copy circulation is about 53%, e-copies 47%, somewhere in those ballparks, and the budget reflects that. So we're in alignment with that. We're not skewed where it's only 20% of that ordering budget is for hard copy materials. Those are all in a line. And the other thing of note in terms of the changes to the budget this year are our income sources. As Alex mentioned, the Carmel Public Library Foundation approved an increase to our disbursement for each year in the amount of $50,000, and that will bring us to $341,000 for the annual disbursement. John mentioned the LAIF interest rates have been increasing. I did keep that estimate just a little conservative, but I think we're there because hopefully inflation will go down, which means the interest rates go down. But so it's a weird thing to hope for. But and then again, prepping for knowing that we will be losing some income from the Friends of the Library, not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year, because they won't have the annual book sale. But I do believe that it will be offset based on what we've seen so far this spring in terms of sales of books in library now that we've set up the little bookstore in the lobby of the park branch. So I think we probably won't be all the way to the $25,000 mark that we've seen from previous years, but we're going to be pretty close. So it might not be as much of a dip for 2024. And I think that is all I have, and I think that's quite enough. Are there questions about what I have proposed to you in terms of the budget for this next fiscal year?
Anybody have any questions? John? No? Okay. I guess I need a motion to approve the budget for the 23-24 year.
Make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Leslie, it's all yours.
Marie Claire Gorham,
Yes.
John Krischer,
Yes.
Susan Murphy,
Yes.
Phil Pardue,
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams.
Yes.
Approved, thank you.
Okay. All right. You're on for the next one. Aren't you lucky?
All right, so in front of you is a proposal for a new library finance policy and the consideration of rescinding the old library policy for cash handling and receipting of money. So at the April regular meeting, one of the questions that was raised was, what happens if we overspend our budget, which has never happened, but it's a good question to have because, you know, these things can happen. And so that prompted me to, of course, review our finance policies. And what I ended up doing was, instead of adding a caveat into the current library policy for cash handling, or proposing an amendment of the bylaws, was to just draft a whole new, more comprehensive finance policy in general that encompasses some of the things that have come up at meetings that we've kind of touched on in terms of our funds and how we are managing them. The new policy includes, which I think is helpful for all of us, especially treasurer, when we look at, you know, the check register and signing of checks and all of those back-end types of things. So purchasing, how we're doing our purchasing, what you see in the check register, travel and training, which we do from time to time. We have a travel and training budget. So what does that look like when you see if you see my name in the check register, it usually means I went to a training or that type of thing. And our policy now calls that out. There, of course, are city policies that govern what we do as city employees, but I think it's very helpful for us to have that spelled out as this board has financial oversight of what we're doing, to have a separate policy for this. We did just amend the library policy for cash handling and receipting, and those reflect those changes that we made. You can see I kept that particular one as an attachment so you can see what we did, which was to add a caveat about what happens in the opposite side of things. What happens if we don't expend all of the funds? And we had a good, robust discussion about that so that the funds would, if they were more than $5,000, we were going to be over budget. We would take less money on the disbursement from the Carmel Public Library Foundation. The policy does reference in each section city policy, which I think is helpful to know that we're operating under an overarching other body who have approved their policies, including purchasing. We've never had that in here, and I think that's really, really important for, how we are buying things. And this year was a good year to examine that, because we did purchase new shelves for the library in the amount of $68,000, and that was something that the board approved financially, but I took to the city council because of the way we do purchasing and the dollar threshold at that time, which has just been amended. But I included that in here because so often what happens with the library is the dollar amounts are either usually very small and regular or super huge. There's not a lot of in between for that. So how do we operate within those bounds? When do things come to the trustees? When do they go to the council? All of that. And I tried to capture some of that and reference those policies. I didn't propose any changes to the bylaws at this time. I think those are fine. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the library finance policy, suggestions for revisions. We can, this isn't for permanent, we can.
All right, I have a quick question on the underspend, $5,000, we take less of a distribution from the foundation. Is that on a quarterly basis, or is that end of year?
It is on a quarterly basis. Okay. So John and I were just talking about the timing of this, and I was thinking about it when I was falling asleep last night. How do we gracefully do this? So Alex has already provided me with the fourth quarter disbursement. It comes at the end of our checks from the Carmel Public Library Foundation come at the end of the quarter. But this fourth quarter is our bridge into the start of the new fiscal year. So I think it's appropriate. I think it will help us for bottom line, for bank account numbers, and to be in adherence with what we put forth in this policy, to update them so that the first quarter check for the next fiscal year, if we are under budget, is over. So for instance, we receive a check in the amount of $72,750 and have for the last few years. And if we're going to be we're under budget $10,000, I would say to Alex, once we start that new fiscal year, the first quarter disbursement would actually be $10,000 less. Otherwise, because right now, again, I have the fourth quarter disbursement check in hand, and we still haven't closed the books out and probably won't for a few weeks yet. Mm-hmm. The timing of that we have to work on. So does that kind of answer your question? I wish it was a simpler way to figure it out, but that is how it is now. No, it's just whether we're going to do it quarterly or annually, because it makes a difference to the foundation on the decisions they make and their budgeting folks. And so, I understand the bridges and things like that. And so if it's quarterly, that's great. It's quarterly. As long as, if we're under, say we're under for the second quarter, and then we have an expense, we can still expend up to the maximum that the Library Foundation is funding us for the year, because things come in choppily. You may have a big expense at the last, you may underspend every quarter until the last quarter, and then that's when it comes due. As long as the Library Foundation and the Board of Trustees understand how that works, and we're good. I just want to make sure there's no hard feelings, no misunderstandings when we get started on this. No, I don't want that either. And again, we'll figure out the cleanest, easiest way for us to do this across the board. Right. And then just for the new members, traditionally we underspend every year on our budget. This is the first year we've even come close to spending everything. And we used to just take all the money and then invest in LEAF funds, which may not be the best interest of the library in the future. It may be better to leave it invested with the Library Foundations. However, you don't want to give back money that you need later within the fiscal year in your strategic plan, that's all.
I think on it is, we really won't know till the end of the fiscal year what we set. Because like Phil was saying, we might be over in October, and January, we're up against it. So if we take less money, I think the only way we'd really know to give back and say to the foundation, don't give us this money, would be at the end of the year, because we know what was spent. As being a treasurer this time, I've noticed things fluctuate all over the place. You watch it, so I'd be uncomfortable saying I'm going to take less until the end of the year, because the way the budget operates, ups and downs, and something happens that we the children's program, the author program, we were talking about that, then that happened. So then the money we need for that, we wouldn't have. So that's my input on that, that it shouldn't be done to the last quarter. When we finally finish the books out and we say, okay, we're $10,000 to the good, we tell the foundation $10,000 less.
Right, and we can look at delaying the disbursement of the fourth quarter while we finish up the books. I just want to make sure that we've got enough money in the bank account to bridge us over into the start of the next fiscal year, the way the checks are distributed. It's not July 1st, here's first quarter, it's at the end of that. So we're in this, it's a weird.
So there's any
Awkward
number
thing.
of ways that'll work. We just need to make sure the foundation and the board are on the same sheet of music, and then.
Exactly.
And Alex has been pretty silent here on what would work for their treasurer the best and how they would like to do it. Because, I mean, they have an input since they're providing the money too, so.
Right. Yep, so we will continue to work on that piece of things for how we roll that.
So is it in the,
Forward.
part of what we're, at the end of this, we're going to be asked to adopt the bylaws or the changes here, I think, if I remember correctly. So does it specifically say quarterly or annually, or is it pretty nebulous?
I included a section on that for, I think it's under the donations.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't think I spelled out whether it was annually or quarterly in the new policy. I just included language in there under the gifts and donations to the library that accepted the Carmel Public Library Foundation and the Friends of the Library regular, I just used the term regular disbursements, rather than, because we stopped formally accepting the checks every time they were handed to us a few years ago. So I wanted to make sure that was clear there. I can include language in there and amend it to include quarterly versus annually once Alex and I have a conversation and bring the policy back, if that's something that would be doable or different. But I think the timing of it is just when the distributions happen for each quarter.
So I guess my point was, is if you didn't specify one or the other, we can approve today if everybody's happy with the bylaws. If you said something specific, then maybe we need to wait to figure it out.
No,
If it's not specific, we can go ahead and get this item of business.
Yes, I did not put anything specific in there.
Okay. That's all I was asking.
Oh, thank you.
Do we have it, is there discussion, or do we want to have a motion to pass this?
Well, I mean,
Well, I think what I both heard you say, one is that we should be reconciling this at least every quarter, which I know you do already. An actual transfer of money would only happen
once a year. But again, we don't necessarily have to have that spelled out in the policy, or do we? That would be my only question.
Well, I think in the policy, I think it's good to lay down in the policy-based, and John may have a different opinion, is that in the past, we had so many years where we did not spend by a significant amount, by $30,000, which is a significant underrun on your budget as it goes through. And then it was never, we accepted the money from the foundation, and then we put it in the relief funds. And so it was all above board, there was no malfeasance or anything like that. But at the end of the day, were we getting the best return for the library, considering that the foundation has better options to be able to go earn a return on that endowment, for the lack of a better word. And so, I just wanted to make sure that there was some agreement for,
Sure.
for future generations of this board, there's something that tells them,
Right.
don't take all the money, let the endowment grow.
Right.
I agree with you 100%. I think this year it's been such an anomaly because we're changing after coming out of the pandemic, and this is the first year we've really up against the budget this year. And maybe things are going to change now. We don't know. I mean, this year will give us an idea of what we're going to be. We might find this year we're up against the budget too. I don't think that, I've talked to Ashley a lot, I think the children's librarian is going to go well over budget. And I think we'll need money to fund her. Her projects are really well attended and be nothing but increase. But I look at things, Phil, how you look at it. I guess for me, being the treasurer at changing times, to look at something a little different than you, because I spend a lot of time talking to her and looking at the books myself.
Right.
And I see things, I said, well, I'm not about ready to give away money till the end of the year because of the way things look. But
And
that's
I'll-
just my opinion.
I will continue, I mean, we'll continue to do, mid-year check-ins or budget adjustments if we need to, and we see, something suddenly, everybody's iPhone breaks and nobody's using e-resources, but everybody wants to come to the park branch to go to kids' programs. We can do those, budget transfers if we need to, when we assess at mid-year.
I am concerned. I think the e-books are an unbounded growing requirement
Yeah.
as we go forward. So it'd be interesting to see how we handle that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any other discussion? Do we want to table it or go ahead and make a motion?
No, we can, I make a motion to accept the change in the bylaws.
It's actually a new policy.
Yeah, hold on, let me get back to the,
Library
Rescinding of the
finance
library cash handling policy and the adoption of the library finance policy.
all right, I make a motion to adopt the new library finance policy and rescind the library policy for cash handling and receiving money.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Leslie?
Marie Claire Gorham,
Yes.
John Krischer,
Yes.
Susan Murphy,
Yes.
Bill Pardue,
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams.
Yes.
Approved, thank you.
All right, is there anything else, or is there any other business that anybody has? New business, old business?
For future agenda items, at this point, I have our election of officers, the end-of-year budget discussion where we landed for 22-23, and a report out from our auditor. And that's what I have for the agenda so far. I'm sure I will have additional things before we get further into July, but that's where we are right now.
Any other discussion?
I'm curious what's happening with Saturdays.
Oh, Saturdays, that will likely happen in September.
Okay.
So we're headed in that direction.
Good.
Any other questions? Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
But no.